The following is a scripted Minecraft video, voiced by Corversity, written by Corversity, and acted by Corversity. Please support the release of the series. A few weeks ago, my friends and I created a Minecraft server, with the sake of it being a place that we could hang out on when we were free. At the time of entering college and moving away from one another, it was decided that we would hang out using Minecraft, a game where we could derive entertainment whilst also having fun with our friends who live so far away. To put it simply, we were a friend group that carried a complete incompetency when it came to consistent communication. The server served as a mediator, allowing for us to log on and talk with our friends without the anxieties that came with attempting to force conversations in group chats when we didn't really know what to talk about. How you could even call this a friend group? I don't know, but it was all I had. Sad, I know. And with that, our friendship that likely would have died off shortly after high school continued to hang on by a thread, carried by our survival world. The first week went pretty well from my point of view. The typical aspects of beginning a Minecraft SMP, logging into the world, setting goals, getting gear, building, nothing out of the ordinary. That's when the 2-week Minecraft phase kicked in, and by the time I knew it, the activity levels of almost all the players rapidly dropped, and getting others to log on was getting increasingly difficult. And so, a month passed by. One day, when coincidentally all 6 of us had been logged onto the server, an unfamiliar player joined the server. Hyclipso GM. Initially, there was confusion, of course, as no one had been told that we were adding a new player onto the server. Did we know them personally? And if so, why were they getting added now and without our permission? A friend. I have no idea who this is. It's not the time. It's not the time. It's not the time. I was sent the IP and just joined. Don't mind me. Just keep having fun. Get out of here. Get out of here. Who gave him the IP? No, but I can't ban them for some reason. Okay. It just doesn't make any sense. Despite this initial disruption, however, since the player wasn't causing any problems on the server, we decided to let it be for now. That was until, about an hour later, each player was teleported to a remote location. A small, arena-like area, if you could call it that. Huh? Why did we just get TP'd? Oh. This guy, why did he have admin commands? How did he have admin commands? The server is pretty boring, isn't it? Don't you want to play an interesting game? If I'm to be completely honest, I've got an exam tomorrow. Can I leave? Look, I just don't have time for this. Let's not be in a rush to decline because soon it will be game time. Oh no. He's rhyming. We're in an unskippable cutscene. It's over. It's over. If any of you wishes not to play, that's fine. Just let me know. Oh. Okay. Yeah, he just banned him. Okay. That just makes perfect sense. That just makes perfect sense. He has access to the console somehow. I have no idea. How is that even possible? Univeron was banned. It finally started clicking in each of our heads that we all had a choice. A choice to either play whatever game was in store, or end up banned from the server. Now I had no attachment to the server, nor was I the one paying money to keep the server up, but this was the only sense of communal involvement I had, so I decided to stay and listen to the game that we'd be playing. Here's how the game works. The Task Exchange Challenge. Each player will receive a dedicated task that they must complete by the end of the 7-day period. For each day, Players must note down the activities they have taken towards completing their task. These notes will be randomly exchanged with another player at the end of each day, where they will have the opportunity to guess which task another player has. The guess does not have to specifically be for the person whose book you were given. In order to win the game, you must be the last person remaining whose task did not get discovered by another player. There are additional rules. This is meant to mostly be a solitary game, so players are meant to avoid one another. However, with agreement, 2 players can come together for a one-on-one meeting. You can only meet with a player once throughout the 7 days. You only get 1 guess per day. If you get it incorrect, you're out of the game. You can choose to forego your guess at the end of each period. In the case that 2 players correctly guess the other's task, there will be no tiebreaker and both players will be out of the game. For the task exchange, the notes can be vague to a degree and will be analyzed by the gamemaster before redistribution. If the notes are deemed too vague, then they will be rewritten by the gamemaster themselves. The book containing the player's tasks must be carried on each player at all times and cannot be placed in any type of container. If you die and lose your book, you can only get 1 replacement the next day. You must have your task book on the final day in order to win the game. You also may not alter the book in any way or make a copy of the book. Lastly, each task must be completed within 1,000 blocks of spawn. Players will be allowed a 1-hour session per day to complete their task before the vote and then the closing of the server. With the rules explained to the 6 of us, it was soon time for the game to begin. While I had my own personal gripes and uncertainties with the game, I could wait to ask later if needed. First, I needed to get started and find a way to gain an advantage in the game, as well as figuring out something else that was eating at me this entire time. The game soon began and the 6 of us split up in different directions, where we would each receive our dedicated task in the span of a few minutes. First, I began heading back to my base back at spawn to get some materials so that I could begin building a new secret base for the next 7 days. What do you... okay. Corversity's task. Using every variant in the game, create a field of flowers. Nothing underground and must be in plain sight. Okay. How do you go about balancing each task? Not every game is meant to be equal for every player. However, we aim to make this as fair as possible. The one who figures out the game is the one who will... Oh, he disappeared. The one who will gain the advantage. Yeah, I definitely understand what that means. I had no idea what this guy meant. The only thing I knew was that I had 1 hour a day to collect every variant of flower and build a field of flowers in 7 days. Outside of getting the wither rose, getting every other flower should be fairly easy. The main problem with this game though, or at least my task in particular, is that I can't build the field underground. If anyone sees me collecting flowers and especially placing them, it'll be as easy as anything to guess what task I have, since it's so obvious what I'm doing. It has to be as natural as possible, which is nearly impossible for wither rose, and I have to complete this without being watched at all within an 1,000 by 1,000 border. Not only that, but I have to observe the other players and figure out their tasks as well, whilst not knowing how difficult their tasks will be in comparison to mine. This isn't as simple as it was presented to us. Luckily enough, I had spent some time collecting flowers on the server and had my own little flower garden to collect some flowers I had found during my time on the server. After figuring out the location for my new base and beginning to build it, I was approached by the game master for the first voting session of these 7 days. Okay. I'm stressed and you're celebrating. Did you get everything important from your chest at the base back at spawn? Can I just get the voting? Thank you. Alright. Task exchange voting book. It is time, it is time. It's voting time. If you know the task that another player has done, list the player and their dedicated task below, then sign the book. If you don't have an answer, return the book to Eclipso GM. Okay. How accurate does our answers have to be for it to count? Close enough. That doesn't help, but thanks. Oh. Alright, I don't have an answer, so yeah. Don't be so quick to abstain from voting. I hadn't even given you the other book yet. What do you mean? Aren't you forgetting something? I don't think so, no. Pretty sure I'm not. I've done what I needed to do. You're supposed to note down your activities and give them to me so I can swap them with another player. But see, it just seems like you haven't. I'll write them down for you today. Yeah, because we're supposed to know that we're supposed to make a book of our own and submit it because you definitely told us this. You definitely told us this. I'm sure. I don't know. How do they know? How? Just look at this player's notes. What? What do you mean? Activity book. I did absolutely nothing of note today. Okay. Why is my life like this? You only had to do it for the first day. I'll give you the book back every voting period for you to submit your activity. Alright. Have a good day. Okay. Thanks, I guess. Well. With that interaction over, session 1 was now over and the server would soon close. I hadn't made much progress as of now, but that was fine. I could figure it all out starting on day 2. Now what doesn't help is that I've given myself another task to solve, all within these 7 days, to figure out who it was that invited this Eclipso player onto the server, and to personally make sure that they lost this game. Day 2. With an hour to work with, I decided to work on the most time-consuming part of my task, getting a Wither Rose. I immediately started this by entering my portal, getting to a fortress, and spending 30 minutes killing skeleton after skeleton, to finally actually getting one Wither Skull. It was just the greatest and exhilarating experience ever. Looting 3 sword and everything, 5.5% chance of the skull dropping. I should have expected this. Despite this, I decided that it would not be in my benefit to spend the entire session in the Nether when there were other things to turn my attention towards. I headed back to my base where I brewed some invis potions. Bruh. Okay. I was going to take a trip back to spawn to see if I could find any players and gain some intel. A player, Visor Tech in particular, had been at spawn and flew away. Seeing this, I splashed invis and decided to follow the direction that he was going, in hopes of figuring out what exactly he was doing. Perhaps this could lead me to figuring out his task. This was a less than ideal situation. Another player who had likely had the exact same idea as me had also landed here, exactly where I had landed. Did they follow me, or was it just a coincidence? Either way, it was a huge problem. From what I could see ahead, Tech was building a farm, a cocoa bean farm, and he was looking at a book whilst doing so. Was that his task book? For the next few minutes, he continued building his farm before flying off back in the direction of spawn. The other Invis players seemed to have left moments before, so I took the opportunity to leave before I could potentially get discovered and return to my base for the final few minutes of the session, writing down my next line of activities in my book before handing it to the game master. It seemed that it was detailed enough to not need any changes, but also not cluing whoever received my book on what I was doing that for. I then received my swap book containing another player's written activities. This counts as an activity? I'm sure this makes any sense. Next, I received the voting book. For this round of voting, I had a choice to use what I saw as a potential chance to get one player out of the game. I handed my book back to the game master, withholding my vote for this session. And with that, the second session came to an end. I logged onto the server for the third session of this game. However, just before I could do anything, there was a new message in the chat. Well, everyone, I have some announcements for day 3. Okay. The good news. Okay, yeah, give us the good news, please. Traps has been eliminated from the task exchange game. Traps had been eliminated from the game. Was his task exposed, or did he incorrectly guess someone's task? Is it possible that he was the Invis player that had been near me when I was observing Tech? If so, then it was possible that he attempted to guess that Visor's task was building a cocoa farm, and he ended up getting it wrong. That poses a new question though. Did he simply guess incorrectly, or was it something else? I also have one other bit of news. It's more of a warning. Oh no, oh no. After today's session, any player who has not shown signs of starting their task will be eliminated. So okay, this applies to me. I haven't started building. I haven't started building my flower forest or whatever, what's it called? My field of flowers. Okay. Well, there goes my strategy of waiting for the last day to begin my task. You know, I feel like this guy is just creating rules off the top of his head, which is pretty unfair, but hey, that's just my thoughts. Regardless, I had 2 reasons for why I hadn't submitted a guess despite spying on what Vizard was doing. The first being that Vizard was easily the smartest player on our server, so for him to so blindly fly right back to his task felt a bit off. But the main reason lies in the fact that I had no reason to guess, even if it were correct, exactly because there was a witness with me there. If anything, I could leave it to them to guess instead, which is what likely happened. For now, I think it's safe to assume that Vizard's cocoa farm was bait to get someone gullible enough to fall for it. But because of this, it means that I'll have to be much more careful when it comes to deciding whether or not something is a feint or not. As I've decided to make my schedule, I headed back into the nether to kill more wither skeletons, and I actually ended up getting another skeleton in about 10 minutes. Now I typically will like to spend 30 minutes, but you really forget how short an hour can be, especially when you need to divide your time between many things, and right now, I need to start on my task before I get disqualified. So I headed back to the overworld in elytra outside of the 1,000 block required range. According to the rules, our task must be completed within 1,000 blocks of spawn, but it said nothing about item collection. Besides, this task might be impossible if that was the case. For the majority of flowers I needed, they were pretty easy to get, especially with access to an elytra. However, there were about 5 different flowers that were slightly higher on the difficulty scale that I needed to prioritize. The torch flower, pitcher plant, and wither rose, which don't spawn naturally, the spore blossom, which is found in lush caves, and the chorus flower that spawns in the end. Luckily, since I have an elytra, finding an azalea tree didn't take too long, and underground these trees lies the lush caves that I was able to pick up a spore blossom in a short time period. Next, to get the rare torch flower and pitcher plant, you needed to get torch flower seeds and a pitcher pod, which are dug up by sniffers, and to get a sniffer, I needed to find a sniffer egg, which is brushed out of suspicious sand, which is found in warm ocean ruins. In my opinion, this was the most annoying part of the flower collecting, but nevertheless, I began searching warm oceans in hopes of finding these structures, but it was a lot more time consuming than I had hoped. I did eventually find one, but I got pretty unlucky when it came to getting the sniffer egg, which has a 6.7% chance of dropping from suspicious sand. Though as I was going to give up and head towards spawn, I found one more ruins. Egg. Finally. Okay. Finally. Please just give me the egg. Give me the egg. Now that I had the sniffer egg, I decided to plant the egg and come back for it later. By placing it on a moss block, the egg hatches fastest, in only 10 minutes. I then placed a 7x7 enclosure to give the sniffer enough space to sniff out seeds before leaving so that I could get started on my task. There was about 15 minutes remaining in today's session. This session I had been pretty isolated from the others, so I was somewhat curious if anything had gone on at spawn, so I began heading there before I got a message asking if I was free to meet up for a few minutes. Although I only had 15 minutes left, I decided to accept the proposal. In this game, you can only meet with specific players once during these 7 days, and before now, I hadn't received any invitations to meet, nor had I sent any, so I had yet to have any direct communication with the others, since it was forbidden outside of planned one-on-one meetings. I received the coordinates to the location, which was fairly close by, and started heading over. The reason I accepted this meeting was so that I could gain a better understanding of what to gain from this. I originally wasn't sure what purpose these meetings served. It wasn't as if you were going to get someone to tell you what their task was. However, starting an alliance or sharing intel was a good reason, as was getting a feel for how your opponents operate. I finally landed at my location. Fairy Leah was the player who called me out. On this server, we had a plugin where you can only see both text and def messages up to a certain block distance, though I'm the only one who has a mic on. Yo. Hello. How's it going? How's the gaming going so far? I mean, it's gone pretty well so far, honestly. Though, the hour feels much shorter than I had hoped. I've been on a race against time. Yeah. It's also been pretty difficult to manage, but, you just gotta do it. I'll spare you the unneeded chatter. For a bit, we talked about how we felt about the game and all, but it didn't seem like the meeting had much purpose. So, I pushed for some answers. So, what did you call me here to meet for? We can only do one of these per player, and so far this just does not seem like the best use of our time. I wanted to see if you would like to form an alliance to make it to the end of this game. So, am I the first person you've approached with this offer so far? Yes, I felt that it was now time to do so. But why on the third day, though? Why on the third day? I finally feel established enough to begin one. So if we do form an alliance, how would it work? Explain that. Having one less person looking to get you out of the game is much less stressful. I mean, that's true. And we can exchange information we deem helpful for the other person. We can't communicate after this, though. So how do we even do that? Directly no, but if two players were to have a location where they drop off books with words, I don't think that would violate the rules. So accidental communication, I mean that might work, but how can I trust you though? How can I trust you? It's tough, but I can show you what my task is. Huh? What do you mean? You'd have to give the book back though, or Hyclipso might get mad. Okay, hold on. This just seems overwhelmingly in my benefit and not yours. I could literally just vote you out of the game right after. What do you even have to gain from this? It's because we've known each other for a while that I know that you're not the type of person to betray my trust. I don't know about that. Besides, there's no reward for winning this game, which is why I'm surprised people are taking it so seriously. I mean, I guess that's true. I'm probably taking it a bit too seriously. At most, I want to get far enough to beat Spencer, but after that, I don't really care. To be honest, I had truly considered accepting an alliance had I been asked, but this was getting unsettling, and so I declined. By the way, I need to ask you something. Do you know who invited Hyclipso GM onto the server? Because that's the big problem right now, and I'm still trying to figure out who it was. No, but I think Spencer knows the answer and is hiding it. I plan to ask him about it after the game ends. Okay, that's fine. There wasn't much more that I could do there, so after conversing with Fairy Leah for 5 minutes, I left with about 10 minutes remaining. In all honesty, I didn't think too hard about the location. The requirement was an open area above ground, and there wasn't many ways to hide it if that was the case, so placing them in plain sight was the best decision I had. I found a location a few hundred blocks away from spawn and started placing the least notable flowers out onto the ground. Even if someone were to find this, it was highly unlikely they would automatically figure out the nature of my task unless they saw me placing these down myself. With 5 minutes left to spare, I made it back to my base before the voting took place. I updated my activity book, which we get back at the start of each session. What in the world has this guy been tasked with? He's just been underground all this time? After receiving the voting book, I once again decided to forego voting and return the book to Hyclipso GM. With that, day 3 was now over. Day 4. We were now about midway through the game. 1 player had been eliminated so far. 5 players left. Congrats to everyone who's made it this far. I'm surprised there's only 1 eliminated player though. I expected a little more. I mean, I just haven't had the time. I've had no time. Why not gamble a little? Take a little guess based on what you know. I'm not doing that. That just does not seem like a good idea. Anyways, I hope you all have cleared your bases at spawn of any unique and important items at this point. You don't want to lose this game after all. The rules favor making this game as fair as possible. Okay, sure. Luckily, I had already done so at the beginning of the game, so this was nothing to worry about. Now that this guy's boring speech was over, I headed to gather some materials for my chest and headed back over to my sniffer egg. It would take about 10 minutes for the egg to hatch, and another 40 for the baby sniffer to grow into an adult before it would start digging. And that would take up the entirety of the session, and rather than wait, I set up an Ender Pro chunk loader to continuously load the chunk while I was online, so that all of these processes could go on while I went to complete some other tasks for today's session. Then I headed to some stronghold coordinates that I had so that I could enter the end, where I went and collected the chorus flower pretty easily before heading back to the overworld, going back to the nether, and killing wither skeletons, though I was unlucky and did not get my 3rd skull. However, I still felt confident that I was on pace to completing my task by either day 5 or day 6. I just needed my flower from the sniffer and the wither rose. So now that I was free while I waited for my sniffer to grow, it was time to take some steps towards winning this game. And it started with sending a specific player an invite for a meeting. I mean, I don't see much of a problem with it. Spencer 442, the player responsible for creating this server. If anyone had any information on who invited Hyclipso GM to this server, it was him. What made me suspicious is the fact that he had no idea how Hyclipso had gotten onto the server, and the fact that he apparently couldn't ban him. Since he runs the server, even if someone else had gotten access to op, he could simply de-op them through the console. Now, this was the first time he had ever run a Minecraft server, so I could understand the confusion, but things felt a little off. Anyways, I wanted to meet up for a pretty simple reason. I like to form an alliance with you if possible so that we can make it to the end of this game. What would I have to gain? And how can I guarantee your trust? I mean, there's no way for me to guarantee your trust, which is why it's a risk. However, considering I believe that another alliance has already been formed, you're at a bigger risk if you stay solo. If you choose not to ally with me, I have no problems about going to someone else, and in that case, you'll be the one at a disadvantage. I'm glad you understand. Still need something concrete that you can trust in. From here, I took a book out from my inventory and handed it to Spencer, with all of the information I had regarding our alliance, along with some additional information. And as I saw him read through the book, I was sure that he was starting to understand. And I think it's something that could work out. If we're lucky enough, I don't know, who knows. There's something else that I wanted to ask you about as well, though. Why did you invite Hyclipso onto the server? And why did you act like you couldn't ban them? Because that just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know what you're talking about. What does that mean? I feel like you should know exactly what I'm talking about. But I didn't invite anyone onto the server and I really couldn't ban him. Even if you've never run a server before, you know about de-opping players. There shouldn't be a reason why you can't ban him. You have that authority. I just want to know why you did it. It's not a big deal. I can't meet your expectations with this, unfortunately. I didn't invite anyone onto the server. He said that he didn't know anything about it, and at this point, pushing for any more would be useless and could potentially cost me an alliance. So I decided to drop the topic and move on to our next steps. I quickly confirmed a few things with him in the meantime, before I finally left to get back to my sniffers before the session came to an end. When I came back, the sniffer had not only hatched, but was now fully grown. What I needed now was a torchflower seed or pitcher pod, in which I ended up getting the torchflower seed before the end of the session, a perfect ending for day 4. I wrote into my activity book what I had done for today, and then received another player's task book, one which I had received back on the second day. Honestly, looking at this player's task, I was feeling a little jealous because the equality between us didn't seem to be there, but regardless, there wasn't much I could do about it. I refused to vote for a player once again, and just like that, day 4 came to an end. We were now on day 5. The first thing I did was wait for the sniffer's 8-minute cooldown between its digging period, and luckily enough, I got the pitcher pod, using my bone meal to grow both the torch flower and the pitcher plant. With that, I was left with one final flower to collect, the wither rose. With 3 days remaining to complete my task, I wasn't in a rush to get the final flower, and so I quickly headed off towards me and Spencer's book drop-off spot. Funny enough, I wasn't responsible enough to have placed the chest with the book at the beginning of the session like I was supposed to, but since it seemed like he hadn't arrived yet, I left it in a chest under a tree before hiding nearby, and before long, he arrived. I was honestly surprised. I mean, if it was me, after a day, I might have forgotten to burn the book. In that regard, he's already better than me. Yes, I'm close to finishing my task. Yes, make sure to meet at the place on time. I didn't record my previous ones, but here's the one I got most recently. Day 1, I did absolutely nothing of note today, okay? Day 2, obtained concrete blocks. Day 3, collected variety of flowers to create dyes. And day 4, search for amethyst geode. Also, make sure to send me the activities you receive next time. There needs to be equivalent exchange. Okay, that makes sense. That's fair. After going through his response, it was soon time for me to head towards our bait location to deliver some materials, but instead, I chose not to do so and headed to spawn. I'm just realizing that I forgot to burn it. Okay. Well, enjoy the forest fire. Okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not that cruel. As soon as I arrived, I splashed the invis and quickly headed inside my base, noticing something different than before. From there, I simply waited. Just as I had hoped, Spencer hadn't done very well in hiding his tracks. If my observations were correct, then someone should be coming soon. I continued to wait, even having to splash another set of invis after 8 minutes. Finally, one of the 2 players I was expecting had arrived in my base. Nova Control. For some reason, they were now going through my chests, but what were they looking for? We were already 5 days in, and yet now they were going through them? I had originally been in a rush while collecting my items on day 1, so that I could start on my hidden base, but as far as I could remember, I didn't leave anything that valuable in there. After they left, I went through my chest, but it was useless since it wasn't like I could tell if there were any changes that had happened. I didn't want to end my investigation here, so I headed outside where I saw them head into another player's base. I began looking through each of the chests, trying to see if there was anything strange, but I couldn't really tell anything. I took some screenshots to reference for later. I wasn't able to come to a conclusion on what was going on here at spawn, but I didn't want to risk getting caught any longer. From there, I headed back to the book drop-off spot, where I of course had a message waiting for me. Why didn't you go to the spot? I feel like I just wasted my time waiting for you. I can only be there for a few more minutes before I have to go. He was rightfully frustrated at my lie, but as long as he had continued following my request, everything should be fine. For now, I headed over to the dedicated location. complete my task, the last thing I needed was a wither rose. Right now I had 2 skulls and needed 1 more, but it was still up to chance on whether I would get one or not, unless I spent a decent amount of time in the nether farming skeletons. I had other things I wanted to do with my time, and I even thought about getting channeling for my trident and making a charged creeper for a guaranteed wither skull, but the chance of a thunderstorm was also considerably low, so I decided against it. I ended up getting nothing after farming a few minutes in the nether before it was time for my meeting with a specific player. Yo, how's it going? Pretty good, can't complain, that's nice, that's nice. I have some Jersey mics next to me, life is pretty good. What's the order? I gotta know. Number 13, okay. Good decision. I assume you got the rosemary parmesan bread because you're a normal human? I am a normal human, yes, okay. Honey mustard? Spicy brown mustard, okay. You're missing out, not gonna lie. It's pretty good and I've never lied once in my life. Trust me. Trust me, you have to trust me. The honey mustard, it's great. I feel like that's not true. No, it is. Trust me, you have to trust me. Well, let's get on to the main topic. If possible, I like to form an alliance for these last few days to get more players out of the game. What do you think? Feels a little late to start trying to form alliances. I mean, I guess, but I didn't expect for the game to be as difficult as it's been so far, and I haven't really had the time to contact anyone yet. The only person I've met up with is Leah, but she's the one who invited me, so... No, but I didn't team up with her. Have you teamed up with anyone yet? Who knows? Well, I'd assume you know, considering you're you after all. You should know this. How do you not know? I'm starting to feel like this is a waste of time. I mean, I feel like I'm being pretty serious about forming an alliance. I'm pretty serious here. I think I'll decline, but thanks for the offer. Well, okay, hold on. You didn't even listen to how you'll benefit from it. Just listen a bit. How you benefit. Listen, I can offer you any information I get. Any information. That's valuable. I'm another player, information, it's good. Literally anyone can say that, bro. I mean, I feel like you're not very good at this game. I mean, I agree, but I'm better at this than you at least. Or either you're stalling or you have a lot of free time. Either way, okay. Are you almost done decorating our bases at spawn yet? I had no idea whether this was their task or not, or even if this was someone's task at all, but they entertained this conversation, so I continued. I've barely been at spawn since the start of the game. I watched you build the present in my base. I mean, you can't run from this. I'm sorry, but you can't. Did you really, or are you just saying that? I mean, remember, I've already told you. I've never lied once in my life. That's difficult to believe when you lied like a minute ago. I mean, I don't think I did, though. I don't think I did. You said that you've only met up with Leah, but that's not true. Sorry to say, but Spencer wasn't very good at hiding his tracks. What does that mean? I know you two have been meeting up, and I know you've been helping him out with his task. I mean, do you really, or are you just saying that? I'm pretty confident. Let's just say that you do know his task. How does that affect me in any way? Like, if I just vote you out, then today will be your last session and I'll be safe. If you vote me out, then I can guarantee it will be your last day instead. I mean, I'd rather not risk that, to be honest with you. It just seems like a a bad idea to vote when I'm not sure. I mean, it can't hurt to try it out, right? It could hurt a lot, actually, so I don't think I'll be doing that. But I know you don't actually know Spencer's task, so even if you did see us together, it won't matter, and you can't prove it. But I have to go now, so I'll see you later. You've declined my offer, so I guess. The conversation was getting a little repetitive, so I decided to leave. Though really, it was because there was one more player who I had yet to have any contact with this entire game, and I had something I wanted to talk to them about. Visor Tech, probably the most knowledgeable Minecraft player on the server. Does that mean much? Not really, but he is the most knowledgeable. At least from my perspective, he had been radio silent this entire game. I hadn't even seen him at spawn. To be fair, that was the type of person he was, so it wasn't surprising. He was a difficult player to feel out, and when I asked him about forming an alliance, he declined, purely off the thought that he could win the game solo. So I decided to get his thoughts on something else. Who do you think invited Hyclipso onto the server? I'm interested in your opinion on it. I'm pretty sure Spencer knows the answer to that. First off, he's lying about being unable to ban him, which is a strange part. Yeah, I agree. He definitely has that power to do so. For what reason, I don't know, but I honestly don't care. What do you mean? I'm the only one who consistently plays on the server, so having someone that actually gets people on has been nice. He offered a unique perspective, one I somewhat agreed with. It was difficult to find things to do on the server, and inactivity had been rising pretty fast. My only problem is, what happens after this? Is a game about deceiving and avoiding your friends really the best way to go about this? This doesn't bring us together at all, and activity will likely continue to drop even after this. Okay, I see what you mean. I can understand that. It makes sense, but I don't know. Well, are you confident that you can win this game? I already have things in action at the moment. If everything goes well, we should finally see some progress after today. Okay. I guess I'll leave you to it, to your fishing, I guess. That's what you've been doing? Okay. Yeah. Enjoy yourself, I guess. I wasn't able to get much information about Spencer, so I left it at that and headed off back to the Nether to continue farming wither skeletons until the end of the session, which didn't bode well because I ended up with absolutely nothing. I updated my activity book, although I didn't really do anything new that I hadn't before, and then swapped it with another player. And for the 5th day in a row, I went without voting for a single player out of the game. Just when I was planning to log off of the server, there was an announcement in the chat. Nobody log out just yet. Huh? This was unusual based on the past days when we log off right after voting. Usually I would announce whether players were removed from the game at the start of the next day. But since I have a few announcements, I think I'd like to do so now. Okay. First off, starting on the next session, all players will be free to meet with each other with no restrictions. You no longer have to meet one-on-one. Okay, that's pretty good. Secondly, if there is no winner by the end of the 7 days, on the final day, there will be one specialized voting period. I expected this game to be over by now, but I guess you guys are much worse at this than I expected, so I was afraid there might be no winner. Okay, sorry I had to collect every single flower in the game and I didn't have the time to... Okay. Anyways, now I will announce the final roster of players who will be participating in the last segment of the Task Exchange Challenge. Alright, already. Barry Leah. Corversity. And finally, what does he mean? Finally? What? Spencer 442. Day 6. The second to last day. Surprisingly, I was feeling a little nervous about how this game would end, especially since it was just Minecraft. And as far as I knew, there were no rewards for winning this game, so to be honest, I was wasting 1 hour a day doing something with nothing to gain. I could really just log off right now, and my life wouldn't change at all. To get to the important matter at hand, 2 players were eliminated yesterday. 2 players, Nova Control and Visor Tech. While it had been more of a gamble for Nova Control to be eliminated, I didn't expect for Visor Tech to be eliminated behind the scenes, especially with how confident he had seemed earlier that day about winning. He said something about seeing progress after today. If that progress was him getting eliminated, then I don't really mind, but what's important is how this happened. Was his task successfully guessed, or did he mistakenly guess on other players? If I assume that Nova Control was eliminated because they falsely reported Spencer, and it wasn't the case of 2 players guessing each other's tasks, then his elimination had something to do with Spencer or Fairy Leah. Since we were free to meet with other players, there was no longer a need to use books to communicate, so I could simply just talk to them directly in order to get information. But first, I needed to get that final Wither Skull. Typically I would spend around 20 minutes in the Nether per day, but if it took longer to get a skull, then so be it. 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and nothing. Okay, I lied. I did finally get a Wither Skull, which was great because I was losing my patience at this point. There was no longer a reason to rush, so I planned to get the Wither Rose at the start of the last day. For the rest of this day and the next, I didn't really have any tricks left. I could guarantee that no player would use their vote for the end of the day unless they were absolutely sure of their answer. I also had no intention to do so either. Since I still had a lot of time left for this session, it couldn't hurt to talk to the remaining players, so I called Spencer over to spawn. Whether our conversation was observed or not by Fairy Leah wasn't much of a problem since I wasn't going to talk about anything that could hurt me in this game. I was also certain that she knew we were working together at this point. So, what happened yesterday because you were late? I had something come up that I had to check on. Well, you still wasted a lot of my time. The plan worked, didn't it? Yes, but was that all to your plan? What do you mean? I don't know what you're saying. You weren't going to betray me, were you? No, I wasn't. What was with that pause? I think you're just imagining it. Besides, how would I even betray you? You could have been wasting some of my time in order to figure out my task. I feel like if you can only think of me betraying you, then this relationship would just never work. But I am sorry for not telling you about it until now. That's my fault. I could have been a bit more honest. I guess that's fine as long as you're more honest going forward. Alright? I know you don't want to talk about this, but it's pretty important, so I'll ask again. Why did you invite Hyclipso onto this server? Once again, I don't get what you're talking about. How do you not understand what I'm saying? The server also isn't whitelisted, so anyone else could have invited him? I mean, you're not wrong. Why are you so certain that it's me? I admit that I could have banned him. I did lie about that, and I'm sorry. But why? Why wouldn't you ban him? I decided that if there was a chance to get activity on the server, then I would take it. No one logs on except Visored. I mean, yeah, that's true. It's pretty accurate as of these last few weeks. I just wanted everyone to hang out together, even if it was just temporary. The thing is, do you see anyone hanging out? We aren't, and that's the problem with this game. You're right, it could have been anyone else to invite him. And to be honest, I don't think you invited him, but you know who did, and you're covering for them. Listen, Spencer, you're the type of person who tries his best to believe in the actions of others, even if you disagree with them. And that's why you've gone this far without telling anyone the truth. But the reality is that this game has only served to tear us apart. I've talked to Nova Control and Visored earlier in this game. In all the time that we've known each other, I've never felt such hostility and distance from them before. And they were acting in ways that weren't like their usual selves, just concerned with winning a game that doesn't even matter. At a point where our friendship was already hanging on a thread, I feel like even my actions so far in this game have done nothing but cause irreparable damage, and for that, I'm sorry. What? I'm not the one who created this server. Okay, hold up. What do you mean? Didn't you talk about setting it up? Yes, but I lied. How did you lie? The one who created the server was Leah. Barry Leah. She was the first player I had met with during this game on day 3. Thinking back to the meeting, it felt like a waste considering that each player could only meet with another player once during this game. The meeting felt like it had no purpose. I felt like she was just wasting my time, and she even acted as if she was going to reveal her task in order to gain my trust. From that point on, it was clear that there were many things going on behind the scenes that made me believe she was the most threatening player left in this game. However, figuring out the player who invited Hyclepso GM to the server had now become irrelevant, because this revelation had changed everything. Spencer was lying about having created the server. The server had been created about a month ago. Why would a lie like this have gone on for so long, and for what purpose? Thank you for telling me this, Spencer. I'm now understanding why you did all of this. So what should we do now? There's only 2 days left, so we'll keep playing it like normal, and then we'll find a solution for this later. It was clear now. We were all tricked into playing this game from the beginning, and Spencer had been the first target, being used as a cover, under the belief that he was helping us all along. Now I could have pushed for more information, but it was finally time to confront the person in question. How's it going, Leah? What's with the dramatic pause with just playing Minecraft? I mean, that's fair. That's fair. I guess it makes sense when this is literally all you have. Okay. I guess. Name 5 accomplishments you have in life. What do we... Participation trophies don't count. I feel like we're extremely off topic right now. We don't have to talk about these things. Anyways, you seem to be thriving in this game so far. Tomorrow's the last day. How are you feeling? Tired. I'm on my 3rd Red Bull. What are you doing where you need 3 Red Bulls? Don't ask. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna bring up drinking Red Bull for no reason at all, but I won't explain why. This is just the the most constructive conversation. We're getting so much done right now. I mean, we can have a constructive conversation if you want, but it won't amount to anything. I thought that I was taking this too seriously, but you're on another level. Want to team up against Spencer? I think we would do pretty well in a 2v1. Is this serious or are you just playing around? I'm half serious since I don't think you'll accept. You're correct about that. Considering you used Spencer as a cover for this game of yours, this shouldn't be a surprise. There's no reason for me to support you. It was bound to get out at one point. I mean, yeah. It couldn't go on forever. I don't see what the big deal has been though. You've been having fun, haven't you? This is the longest you've consecutively played on this server. All this has done is tear apart our friendship, I think. I don't think it's really had a positive impact on anyone, except maybe yourself. It's far too late to be saying this. If a Minecraft server was what was holding our group together, then perhaps there wasn't much friendship left to begin with. Besides, for someone who keeps criticizing me, you sure have been one of the most quiet in our group. But now you're coming up to me and saying, please stop. And then what will you do after this? Nothing. Like you always have. The reality is that you don't actually care. You just feel a moral obligation constructed by your inflated ego. Sounds like you're venting. It's been a pretty big build-up, huh? Even if some of this is true, you're lying to some extent, right? This couldn't possibly be the reason you felt the need for us to play this game. There had to be some sort of incentive that led to you doing this. Why would you need someone else to hold the game instead of holding it yourself? Participating in a game is more fun than watching. You're fine participating in an unfair game? How has this been unfair? I mean, there's a lot of things unfair about the game. All tasks are definitely not equal in difficulty. The game master changes the rules as they see fit. I think it's fair to say that not everyone has an equal opportunity to win. I don't think anyone who's failed to make it this far lost by being unlucky though. Are you sure? I've lied a few times in my life, but you can trust me here. Who is Hyclipso GM and did they come up with the rules for this game? That's what I need to know. They're just a friend of mine that offered the host the game. Who came up with the idea to play the game in the first place? I did. And you gained no advantage from this? I'm dragging it out. What am I accusing you of? Okay. Well, you were working with Nova probably at the start of the game. I was told at the start that the ones who figure out the game will gain the advantage. To be honest, I didn't think that was much of a hint back then. But on the fourth day, they told us that they hoped we cleared our base of any unique and important items. The day before, you contacted me in what I thought was a waste of a meeting. You went as far as offering me your task in exchange for trust, yet you didn't seem to mind when I declined the alliance. I might be wrong, but it felt like you were stalling. And considering the fact that you so conveniently contacted me the moment I started heading to spawn, and how Nova's task likely was there as well, I think not only were you covering for them to do their task in secret, but also having them check each chest frequently to check if anyone had ever came back to their base. If there are unique and important items in our chests, they likely had something to do with identifying the task of each player. What I believe happened was that in exchange for access to our server, you were given the roles and hints in advance. Day 7. The last and final day of the Task Exchange Challenge. For the 6th day, we weren't required to update our activity book anymore, but we did end up swapping for the last and final time. And from there, I now knew the activities of the 2 other contestants. The only problem would be in identifying each of their tasks and which belonged to who. But first, there was one final thing to take care of. I needed the Wither Rose to finally complete my task. As it was starting to reach the night, I found a village a decent ways away from spawn. I'm sorry, too. But unfortunately, I need a sacrifice. It really is unfortunate, really. It really is unfortunate, okay. Where are my wither skulls? There we go. There's no escaping this. Oh, I did not mean to, okay. That's fine. Oh, there's my rose. Alrighty. We're out. We outie. We're out. I'm out. I'm out. We're out of here. Having received the final key towards completing my task, I headed off towards the flower garden where I then finally placed my remaining flowers. Honestly, I hadn't expected it to take me until the final day to complete this task, as I was hoping that if it took me this long, perhaps it was the same with the other 2, because if I find out it only took them like 3 days, then it's rigged, man. I'm at a complete disadvantage. But with it being the last day, I needed to figure out if there were any logic to how each of our tasks worked. With me, for example, I had a task that required me to dedicate a large majority of my time towards traveling to different biomes and relying on RNG towards completing it. This led to me having much less time to spend with meeting with others and attempting to discover other players' tasks. However, there was an advantage with my flower garden task. I couldn't necessarily compare it to many other players, but at least from my perspective, it was much more concealed from the other players. When you contrast my task with Nova Control's, you see a task that doesn't necessarily take a large amount of time to complete, but is much more noticeable for other players. This is why they worked with Fairy to complete their task. Less work, but much more risky. If this can be applied to the other players, then the best I can do is try to recall my past experience with the other 2 players and decide whether they were busy or not at my times meeting with them. On day 5, with Spencer's annoyance at me taking long to deliver supplies and stating that he only had a few minutes left due to him being short on time because he hadn't completed his task, or was I just overthinking it? With Fairy Leah, was her carefreeness the result of having already completed her task early? There were so many factors to think of, but with there being less than an hour remaining, I had to hurry. I first headed off back to spawn to finally check on something, though it was probably too late at this point. The chests at our bases at spawn. Back when I had snuck into my base at spawn on day 5, I had caught Nova Control going through not only my chests, but other players' chests as well. I couldn't tell what Nova was looking for at the time, but with there being so few players left and my task completed, I felt like I could finally explore spawn. I immediately headed inside of Spencer's base, specifically because of the fact that I had screenshotted every chest in his build. However, the moment I arrived, all of the chests were gone. And so I headed to the next base, and the next base, and the next. Even with my own base, the chests were gone, which was pretty inconvenient in general because all that meant was that someone basically just took all of my items. They're going to return my items to me after this game, right? They weren't burned or anything, right? Alright, I assume this base also has no chests. I think that's pretty obvious. Why is Visor's base blocked up? Oh! What is this? What? Oh. Is this... Okay, I really should be putting on my armor. I really should be putting on my armor. I could have died if I didn't have my lecture on. Okay. Okay, what is this? Get this out of here. Okay, I need to get out of here. I need to get out of here. I can't tell if Visor's the one who built this or if someone put it in his base. What is this? I almost died. Hold on, let me not just get pushed into it again, please. Please. Oh, what? Okay. Okay. Why? Pretty cool trap. What? Is this yours? Nova also fell for this trap. Did you make this? Who made this? I'm fearing for my life. Who knows? I mean, okay, does it have something to do with how Nova was eliminated from the game? Don't you already have the answer? I mean, not really. She was your teammate, so I assume you have all the details. Well, I'd rather not say how they were eliminated. Okay. But I will say that Visor was the one who built this trap. Okay. I mean, I guess that makes sense. It didn't work in his favor though, considering he was eliminated as a result. What are you going to do when this game is over? I think I'm being pretty straightforward with my question. I was confused because your question is a little silly. What do you mean? I would go on with my life as usual. You would as well? I mean, no, I think there would be some changes. I thought about it a bit over the last few days. I originally went to this game casually, not thinking that it was to be taken that seriously. There was no reward to incentivize me to try as hard as I did over these last 7 days. So why was it that I was taking this game so seriously? Was it just because I was excited that everyone was on again? Was it just because I'm competitive? When I thought about it like that, it felt simple. But there was something more than that. I think I was taking out my frustration and resentment out on everyone. My frustration at the fact that my friends hardly logged on, including myself, and the resentment I had for myself for being unable to bridge the gap between us. It was through this game and my interactions with everyone that I'd accepted it, that this game served to be an ending point in our relationship with one another. And so it became important that I gain something in exchange for something irreplaceable. At least, that's what I thought. But I'm now realizing that the solution to everything was here all along. We had just gone about it in the wrong way. Leah, the solution right now lies in both you and me. Alliances, betrayal, deception, they were only tools for splitting us up. For a group of people whose only form of communication sadly relied on a Minecraft server, our actions only served to push everyone away from the one place we could communicate at. But it isn't entirely over. There's one way that we can end this game off on a good note. One way that we can both redeem ourselves for our past actions. "25 minutes? What?" There's 25 minutes left before the end of the final session. Yeah. You should get a move on unless you know everyone's task, which I doubt. So you're just going to disregard my entire speech? Okay. Okay, I just gave this entire heartfelt speech and you don't even care. You don't even care. Okay. That's fine. No, I understand pretty well what you're saying and I can accept your perspective. But I believe the relationship of our group ended a long time ago. This server was created with the purpose of letting it die completely, to get rid of all of the anxiety that came with waiting for others who couldn't put in the effort to log on for those that they consider friends. So unfortunately, I'm far too competitive to simply go along with what you want. I don't plan to lose this game. Okay. Well, I guess if that's how you feel, there's really nothing else I can say to you. Yeah. I'll see you later. There was nothing more to say to convince her, so I left. But I couldn't let her win this game. Not out of spite, but due to the loneliness that came with being at the top of such a game. I also consider myself a competitive person. Despite this though, I have absolutely no intention of winning this game. With 25 minutes remaining, I decided to allocate my resources toward discovering the task of at least one of the remaining players. If it were Leah, that'd be preferable, but I didn't have much of a choice at this point. One activity book talked about sheep, cacti, copper, and flowers. The other book spoke of chests, spider eyes, sugar boxes, and white dye. Both of these books had an interesting mixture of items, but if I had to guess, the first one had to do with a type of build. Sheep for wool, cacti for dye, and copper and flowers to help decorate. And seeing as the activities don't appear to be overly difficult, we can assume that the extra time gained from a simple task is spent trying to hide this build. But this just means that I can only look for it within this 1,000 block border. And with 25 minutes remaining, I don't think it'll be that simple. With the other task book, the chests, chokers, and white dye are what sticks out to me the most. I'm not sure what the spider eyes are necessarily for, but with the other 3 items, this could be a build as well. It doesn't feel like I'm getting anywhere though. I have no choice but to fly around and see if I can find anything. 20 minutes remaining. I have no leads whatsoever. With the amount of involvement Leah had behind the scenes of this game, she had to have been able to finish her task fairly quickly, or at least didn't have to worry about not finishing it in time. In that case, let's focus on the chests and chokers. What kind of build work requires these 2 items? Is it even a build, or am I just getting it completely wrong? I'm overthinking. 15 minutes remaining. No signs of anything. Should I head back to spawn? Whatever it was, it had to be exposed somewhere. Okay, wait. There is something. Not a complete guarantee, but it's something. In Minecraft, block entities such as chests, choker boxes, and signs stop loading after 64 blocks. And using this feature, you can hide things such as chests high up in the air without people being able to spot them from below. It's possible that this trick isn't involved in the task at all, and the chests and chokers are somewhere on the ground, but blindly searching for them will take me nowhere. That's where another feature comes in. In the debug menu, there's a portion named CHS and SHS, which gives you the information on height maps. Essentially, these tell you the highest Y level of the block above you. Typically this number will be pretty low, but if I were to fly under a chunk with a chest above me, this number would increase. It was an all-out gamble, but I had no other choice at this point. And with 15 minutes remaining, I couldn't even guarantee if I had enough time for this to amount to anything. Though to be fair, part of this is on me and my time management. I mean, I had only finally completed my task on the last day, then I went to spawn to check on the bases, and then I gave a whole speech to Leah that ended up being a waste of... Oh, the Minecraft gods have shown on me once again. This is my chance. Noticing the increased number of height maps, there was something guaranteed to be above the chunk I was in. This was it. The moment of truth. Whoever's task this was had finally been discovered. What? This is a boat. A boat made out of chests? Is that what this task is? I started going through the chests and nothing. I saw the chests, the chokers, and the white dye used to dye the chokers used for the flag. And if I assume the spider eyes were just for making invis, then this is it? What could I possibly guess for this? A chest boat? But the chokers are also here. What task would need both of them? It'd have to be extremely specific for both chests and chokers to both be required. That's way too convoluted for whoever tries to guess what task this is. It has to have some level of simplicity, at least to some extent. There was now about 5 minutes remaining. I had already seen all there was to see there, and so I waited for the time to end. These past 7 days have been some of the strangest I've had playing Minecraft, and while it coming to an end was mostly relieving, there are some aspects of it that I'll miss. I never thought that I could feel this way about a Minecraft event, but regardless, this was the end of it all, and I was satisfied. With the game over, just like on the first day, the remaining players were teleported to an arena at a remote location from spawn. I'm very glad you have all neglected your personal lives and wasted your time, all for the sake of having fun over these past few days, okay? However, as long as you win, perhaps it'll be time well spent. Maybe. I would congratulate you all, but I'm honestly disappointed. What do we do? Typically this game ends before the 7th day, but D3 somehow extended it for this long. I had hoped that we could end the game normally, but with us having 3 players left, it'd be best if we don't end up in a situation in which it ends in a tie. So I would like to propose a new set of rules for a final voting period. Okay. We're not doing the typical voting period? I guess not. I warned you earlier that I would have liked for the game to end, didn't I? Wouldn't it be boring if a 7-day game ended with the same elimination rules as every other day? I guess it's not wrong. That's why I like to propose a solution. A very fair solution where every player has a chance. What was the point of us playing this game for 7 days if you're just going to change the rules right at the end? That's true as well. From the very beginning, it should have been obvious that this wasn't a fair game, and I think you all have made it this far because you understand it. But it's because this game is unfair that we strive to make it as fair as possible to give each player a chance in the end. If you wanted to win so badly, then you should have ended it before the final day. Well, dang, that's tough. With that out of the way, let's hear our new rules for the final voting period. To get ahead of the scenario in which 2 players vote one another out of the game, there will be a guaranteed voting order. To decide this, each player would choose who they wish to get the first vote, and the player who receives the most votes will be allowed to guess a task first. You cannot vote for yourself. The player who starts will have the option to guess another player's task or pass it to another player. If they choose to guess and are incorrect, they will have 2 options: to pass it to another player, or they will have no choice but to submit their final guess. If they get their second guess incorrect, they will be eliminated from the game, and the vote will be passed to another player via a game of event trivia, which will be explained if the situation arises. If a player chooses to pass, they will no longer be allowed a second guess, even if the vote gets passed back to them. Now, if a player gets their first guess correct, they will be allowed another guess, but they'll also be allowed to use their only pass if they choose to do so. And with that out of the way, let's begin with our first vote. Each of you will have 5 minutes to decide who it is you would like the vote to go first. Okay. You're free to communicate if you like, however, you are not allowed to discuss the contents of another player's task. Your 5 minutes starts now. Alright. Having an ally by my side at the end, this entire situation felt directed in our favor, as long as we had even paid a bit of attention during this event. However, even though it could be considered a 2-on-1 situation, we weren't allowed to help another player by discussing what task Leah had. This way, even if it was Spencer or my turn to guess, we wouldn't be able to aid the other person in guessing correctly. Although it didn't really matter that much since we were limited in the information we could discuss, Spencer and I flew a little bit away in order to speak freely, and it didn't look as if Leah had any intention to follow us. So, do we have the same idea? Well, I'm pretty sure we do. We have the advantage in numbers, which allows us to automatically dictate many parts of this final game. What's important though is whether we can predict who it is that Leah will vote to start the game off. One of us also needs to vote for that person to allow them to get the first vote. The problem is the fact that we aren't allowed to discuss much, so we have no idea which one of us has the best knowledge to vote her out. I don't think I can ask about what you've discovered in the game, but do you have any confidence in what her task is, because that'll be what decides how we proceed. If neither of us do, then we need to force a situation where she has no choice but to use up her free pass and then gamble on her not knowing both of our tasks. I feel like I've had much more free time in this event than you have. I'd say I'm pretty confident that I can narrow her task down in 2 votes. Are you absolutely sure? Because each of us has a pass that we can leverage to force Leah out of the game. The only problem is that it's risky, and if you don't get this right, then you'll be eliminated, which I feel like this might just not be the best idea. I understand what you mean, but I don't think we'll be in a position where we can rely on the risk, though I can't be very specific. Do you feel confident in that strategy working? I mean, honestly, not really. When Hyclipso talked about making the game as fair as possible, I think they factored in Leah's knowledge when deciding the rules of this game. So depending on our decisions, we may not even be at an advantage. Exactly why I feel like we have to be aggressive to have a realistic chance. It's better than sitting and hoping for a free win. Well, I think you're right, but there's one exception I want to make. So if after the first guess you don't feel confident, then I want you to pass the vote to me so that I can guess as well. Assuming we can say our guess out loud, it'll allow each of us to get an idea of what information the other has, so that our second guess is better thought out. After our 5 minutes of discussion was over, we headed back over to begin the true ending of the task exchange event. Your 5 minutes are now up. We will now begin with our first vote of the final game. From your left to right, each player can state whose task they would like to guess. Spencer. And just like that, our plan was already in shambles. It's over. It would be nice to have a backup plan for this, but 5 minutes just was not enough time to talk about all of this. Since there was a tie, there will be a 1-minute interval between our next vote. With only a minute, we just let the time run out before the vote started again. Spencer. So, absolutely nothing has changed. It was the same with round 3, the same with round 4, and the same with round 5. Spencer. Bruh. You know, Leah, I might as well say it since you can tell, but we're not going to budge, so that you might as well just change your vote. You might as well just do it. Oh, I'm just being ignored. Okay. No response. Was this a part of her strategy, or was it just to get back on me for our previous conversation? It could be both too, I guess. Maybe she thinks I won't be able to guess her task, and she wants me to use my pass first? She could also have guessed our backup strategy, and decided that she would try to force us into voting her as the first vote. But if that was the case, then it would mean that she's confident that she can guess both of our tasks. Spencer. Okay. We were now on round 10, with no change in sight. Spencer. Oh. I guess it's my turn? Well, it looks like Spencer took things into his own hands. I'm not sure how I feel about this approach, but I have no choice now. It's nice to see that after 10 rounds we have finally reached a decision. I'm also glad because it's been a bit too long. Now the game can truly begin. You have 2 choices. Would you like to guess a task or pass your turn? Since I was forced into this position, it would be a waste to immediately use my pass without guessing a task. If I choose to pass, Then if it becomes my turn again, I'll only be allowed one chance to vote. I would like to guess a player's task. Which player? Fairy Leah. There were a few ideas I had for the chests I had seen earlier today, but at least for the first guess, I'd like to go for the very specific one to help narrow it down for both me and Spencer. My guess is her task was to build a flying ship. Okay, that's incorrect. Well, that's fine. I was wondering if the ship was a misdirection, and it seemed that ended up being the case. But if Spencer's seen the build, he should be able to narrow it down even more and possibly guess it correctly. Would you like another guess, or would you like to pass? I'll pass it to Spencer. Alright, Spencer, would you like to guess or pass? I'd like to guess for Fairy Leah. I think her task was to build a shulker farm. What in the world is that guess? That might be worse than mine. Incorrect. Would you like to guess again, or do you want to pass? I'd like to guess again. Huh? What are you doing? What are you doing? What is he doing? I literally told him that if he didn't feel confident, then he should pass it back to me. There's no way our answers were so drastically different and he's still this confident. What is he trying to do? How much time do we have to guess? This is not. 1 minute. I might have put my confidence in the wrong man. No, I have to believe in him. It's the only thing that I can do at this moment. He could have just been doing the same thing as me and was just testing the waters. Automatic shulker crafter. You're not serious. And just like that, any advantage we might have had is now gone. We don't even have priority anymore. Why did he do this? Did he even see the build? Where did he even get his confidence from? I should have known it was over from the beginning. My only hope now is that there was meaning in this. He was so confident for no reason. Was it to prevent me from going first? But it did end up happening anyway. Or did he want to eliminate himself from the game? To make it easier for me? I mean, I didn't have any idea what his task was in the first place, so it would be impossible to eliminate him. Perhaps he guessed that might happen? But that would mean he wanted me to win. But I was doing this because I wanted to give him the win in the first place, so everything was just ruined now. He should have already had an idea of what my task was due to our plan on day 5, but he didn't take advantage of it. There's still something that doesn't make sense though. If for some reason he felt that he didn't deserve the win, fine. But why not fight until it's us two remaining? Then it'll be easier for him to throw the game. Is it possible that she already knows what his task is, and he knows she did as well? And so she forced me to start to get rid of my pass, knowing that he wouldn't pass it back to me so that I don't guess incorrectly and get eliminated, and he'd end up passing it to her? Then she would just eliminate him, and then force me to use my last guess, effectively removing me from the game, and she wins. Things were just not going in my favor today. Spencer 442, you have now been eliminated. What is this? This is just not how I envisioned this to go. This is honestly kind of fun. With one of 3 players eliminated, we're now down to our last 2 contestants. As I said earlier, a game of trivia will decide who receives the next vote. Instead of your usual trivia, it'll be trivia of things that have occurred during this game over the past 7 days, so I hope you both have been paying attention to everything happening around you. The way this will work is that each of you will answer your own personalized questions, things which you may be able to understand if you are paying attention during the game. We will keep going until one player gets a question wrong, and if the other gets theirs correct, they will get to guess first. I'll start off with you, okay? What two players had tasks at spawn? It should be Nova and Visor Tech. Correct. Okay. Barely, how many players had their task correctly guessed over these 7 days? Zero. I'm not gonna lie, that is kind of sad. While that number is unfortunate, your answer is correct. Perversity, what day was it required that all players show signs of starting their task before they were eliminated? I think that was like day 3. Day 3? Okay, correct. Barry Leo, if the game started the moment I joined the server, how many players were eliminated? If it counts the moment you joined, then 5 players. Correct. Okay. Perversity, on day 2, you alongside an invisible player witnessed Visor Tech building in secret. Who was this invisible player? It feels weird that you're watching us that closely, but it was Traps. It was invisible. Traps. Good at temp. Incorrect? How? Barry Leah, who was the only player who forgot to write down their activities on the first day? Corversity, of course. Okay, you're not actually serious. What type of question is that? Correct? Oh. And with Corversity getting his question wrong, Barry Leah, you will be allowed to start off with the first guess. Since this is your first turn, you still have your pass if you choose to do so. With this being the final 2 players, you'll each be given a 5-minute period to think about your guess. You may now begin. The fact that I hadn't gotten the trivia question correct bothered me, but we were past that by now. Right now, in this situation, there was really nothing I could do but wait and hope that she hadn't discovered my task. Barry Leah, it is now time for your first guess. Okay. For my first guess, I'd say that his task was to create a statue of you. Eclipso GM? That is incorrect. What is that guess? That just does not have anything to do with my task. Then was it Spencer's? Is that why he eliminated himself early? Based on the rules, once you use your pass, you lose your second guess. But if you were to guess a player correctly on your first try, then you could technically choose to pass to another player. And if the vote was eventually passed back to you, you may not be able to pass anymore, but you'd still have 2 attempts. If he knew she knew our 2 remaining tasks, but not who had which, then he would make sure that she would only have 2 guesses to narrow it down instead of 3. Except, all this means is that she had just now narrowed it down. It really didn't matter that she had 2 votes instead of 3. Although it's in hindsight, if I hadn't been so indecisive and risk it with my second guess, it was a mistake to try and force her to use her remaining votes. By playing passively, we ended up making our biggest mistake, and it was all my fault. Barry Leah, would you like to use your second guess or pass? I'd like to use my second vote. Then you will have 5 minutes to determine your guess. Good luck. Core, can I ask you a question? Yep, sure. What were you thinking about me when you learned the truth of why the server was created? What did this server mean to you? What did our friend group mean to you? That's just more than one question. That's more than one question. Too many. I think they're all the same. I'm basically asking what this entire task exchange event means to you. To be honest, I had fun. The truth is that I was having fun. Despite knowing what this game would cause unknowingly, I was enjoying interacting with everyone again. That's all true. And I was addicted to the feeling I got the farther I made it in the game. It was these obsessions that got me this far. I never reached out to anyone to communicate how I felt, and I never planned to. Just like you, I was going to let our group die while doing nothing to stop it. This was your idea of a proper send-off, wasn't it? When you noticed the activity level dropping, this was your way of ending it. I understand that, but it's still difficult for me to accept. You're wrong about one thing? What is that? Regardless of the activity on the server, this event was predetermined. Okay. I will say one thing though. You did much better than I expected during this game. I would have liked to eliminate you earlier on, but you gave me a risk I couldn't take. That's why I'm interested in what your decision will be. Will you make the same mistake I did? I'm interested in seeing it. What's that mean? Oh, the 5 minutes are up. Please state what your final guess is. My guess is that Corversity's task was to collect every variant of flower and distribute them to other players unknowingly. With her second guess wrong, Fairy Lee has been eliminated, meaning that the winner of the task exchange challenges Corversity. I just do not understand what's going on right now. You should know my task, right? I'm pretty sure you do. It was unfortunate. Because you're the opposite of me in many ways as of now. It wasn't as if I was having fun doing this. I wanted everyone to continue having fun together. But deep down, I knew it was impossible. You can't so easily change people or even yourself. That's why I gave up, because I expected others to do things I could never do myself. I think we all played a part in what's happened. However, rather than abandoning it all, I think it's okay for us to try again. If we really want something, there's nothing wrong with wanting to hold on to something important to us, if only for a bit longer. And there's also nothing wrong with wanting to let go of it either. I was going to give up as well before the game had started. I thought there was no point in trying to save this group, but something inside me felt that it was irreplaceable. I didn't know what to do. I think that thought gave birth to your actions as well. Giving up and abandoning it all, I forgot why you were all so important to me in the first place. The guilt we have won't go anywhere. I couldn't help but think it was fine to forsake it all, but I was wrong. It's because you're standing in front of me that I know we both can't stand to lose so easily. That's why, let's start over again. you serious about this? I mean, I've never lied, have I? Maybe I'll consider your offer then. I think that's a good idea as well. From there, I was the last player remaining. I wasn't sure what she was thinking at the time as she vanished before my eyes, but she listened to my regrets, to a desired future, one in which we could all come together as a group, one finally capable of expressing how we feel. As she faded away, I couldn't help but dream for that distant future, no matter how difficult it may be to reach. But it's because there was a future that we can look to tomorrow and continue struggling in hopes that one day we can all come together and laugh at how far we've come. Congratulations, Corversity. Thank you, thank you. Is there some sort of prize that I get for winning, or you've now completed the preliminary stage? Huh? Next up, you'll be able to participate in the Virtuous Cup where dreams come true.